Okay, so for some context for this video, this is a series I started on another channel, but I have since decided to move to this one. And the premise of it was we take one of the structure decks from Yu-Gi-Oh! Duel Links, we get 3 copies of it, and then we first of all try and make a deck with only those cards, see how it would look. But another thing I want to do moving forward that I didn't do before is then try and create another list that expands upon that idea, but is still kind of very budget achievable, right? Because if you're buying 3 copies of the structure, you're maybe not a whale, but you're sort of a budget player. You want to pick up a competitive deck kind of quickly without a whole lot of investment. And so I want to kind of keep that in mind when I'm making that second deck list. And so the structure deck we are going to do for this episode is Full Metal Desperado, one of the EX structure decks. I have purchased 3 copies of this. We have the Desperado Barrel Dragon as the main focus. It's very dark machine sort of oriented, however you want to pronounce that. Other standout cards is things like Blowback Dragon, not Barrel Dragon. The Gen X Ally Crusher as some weird kind of removal to Koichi, and the Blast Spider. Let me fix up that art. Some of the back row isn't that great. If you wanted to make a more Blowback Dragon centric deck, you might consider things like Regretful Rebirth, like Autonomous Action Unit. It's not the direction we've gone in today, however. I'm going to get into the duels. That's not the direction we've gone in today, however. I will get into the deck list now and show you what direction I've decided to take. Just right off the bat, using just the structure deck cards, and what I think the standouts are. So the standouts, Barrel Dragon obviously is the core focus of the deck. It's what makes the deck tick. It's quite a nice boss monster. It can special summon itself from the hand. It's got a quick effect monster removal during any battle phase. It can potentially draw you a card if you high roll. It can give you some recursion if it ever gets outed and sent to the graveyard. We're not currently running a target for it to sort of float down into, but there are some options, obviously, because we're just using just a structure deck, and I'm not going for the Blowback Dragon. But there might be some cards to consider. Yeah, so the Twin Barrel Dragon, I think you can get it from Keith, or you can get it from the card trader, and that's something that they can pick up, and it's another dark machine. Some people ran Temperance with this, with a particular skill, but if you ever care about protecting your life points to that extent, you can obviously go for that. I don't think the floating down effect is all that important. Another standout card, Blast Spider. Once per turn, you can target a dark machine you control, and face-up card your opponent controls, destroy them. Now this can be a field spell, it can be a face-up continuous spell and trap, or it can be a monster. So quite often you will use this to out some face-up back row, you know. I will say that on the ladder I've been running into a lot of Dark Magicians, so this can out Dark Magician Circle. Gen X Ally Power Cell is just a one of our 4 sort of beat sticks that we have, just normal summon beat sticks. It gives 500 attack to all other monsters with the same attribute. We're only running dark, so that's everything. To Koichi, it's just a dark machine. It can draw you a card. If this gets flipped and you draw Desperado Barrel Dragon, then this gets destroyed. You do get to trigger the Barrel Dragon you just drew off the Koichi, off of the Koichi's destruction. So that's a pretty cool interaction. It can sometimes come in handy. There's another one of our beat sticks. And now I'm going to get into the Gen X Ally Crusher, because we have Machina Armored Unit. Once per turn, when a machine monster is destroyed by battle and sent to the graveyard, special summon one machine monster from your deck that has the same attribute. These are all darks. uh, but less attack than a destroyed monster in the graveyard. So this lets us float down, essentially, in our dark machines. So Mechanical Chaser can float into any of these. Power Cell can float into the Blast Spider, Dekoichi, Crusher, but Blast Spider and Dekoichi can float into Gen X Ally Crusher. And I really like having a target for those if this is on the field. Ideal scenario, you have your set Dekoichi, it gets flipped, destroyed, you Barrel Dragon, you trigger the armored unit, you bring out the Crusher as well. But it is only on normal summon. It's just for the subsequent turn, and because it can pop any card your opponent controls, it's one of the few ways, just at the structure deck, you can actually remove back row, which I feel like definitely matters. And the other thing I'm running is the Machine Assembly 9. It just gives a small attack boost, and it could, if you're in sort of a grindy game state, give you some Graveyard Revival, but I feel like that wasn't as impactful as like getting a special summon from the deck, because it's much easier to sort of trigger and much more applicable. And the skill, there's plenty of skills that you can run. I'm picking Switcheroo just because I want to increase the instance of getting a Barrel Dragon, but also a Dark Machine to trigger the Barrel Dragon. If I have too many Barrel Dragons, I want to shuffle them back. If I don't yet have it, I'm going to want to increase the instance of finding it. So I'm going for Switcheroo. But you could run Draw Sense Machine. Maybe not. I don't think that's actually the best. But Draw Sense High Level is something that you could use since you're not running the blowback. Get you into that Barrel Dragon. You could run Baggy Sleeves. If your level 7 or higher monster is destroyed by battle, during your next draw phase, your draw becomes 2 cards instead of 1. So it can give you a good grind game if you're Desperado. If you find that you're very consistently summoning it, it can give you some follow-up on the next turn if it ever gets added. So there is some options there. But as I say, I think this is something that can function in gold. And I know that because I tested that in gold. I eventually did switch because I did start to struggle a little bit as I reached it sort of into the plat sort of range. So that's when I sort of made this other deck that's expanded on the idea, as I say. It's included some other cards that aren't just a structure deck, but it's still pretty achievable to get, and that's what I like about it. So we're going to get into that deck list now. It's kept some of the greatest hits. It's kept a Desperado, and it's kept a Blast Spider. I feel like those are very good cards to come out of the deck. But it's running some other Dark Machines. It's running the Cyberdark, like a small Cyberdark engine, Triple Cannon, Triple Edge. These are cards you can get from farming Zane, or you can get them from card tickets. Enemy Controller is very new player friendly. Unfortunately, it is at 1. But it's still just a nice include. The other thing you could do if you had it was Mirror Force. I forget how I obtained this. It might have been a campaign reward. You can use these interchangeably. Whatever one you have, just roll with. I've been running 2 Swamp Mirror. This is something that I don't think is terrible. It's just a very cheap, accessible card. It's available at the card trader. And the reason I like it is because you can declare 1 monster type and 1 attribute. Special summon this card as a normal monster with that type and attribute. So you declare Dark Machine, and now this is something that if it ever gets destroyed, can now trigger your Desperado Barrel Dragon to summon itself. And what I noticed with the other deck in some of the duels is it's tough because you're very normal summon reliant. Whereas this can sort of help you develop your board presence a little bit quicker and help you sort of try and contest a board a bit more effectively. And some other cheap cards, Windstorm, it's available through my level up reward. Trap Hole with Spikes, I think was another campaign reward. If you don't have that, that's fine. Curse of Anubis is another card that you can get from Odeon, I believe. And the last card in this deck I'm running is the World Legacy Clash. Now this isn't a part of any campaign reward or ticket or anything. It is in a box. However, I want to talk about this real quick. It's only a rare. It's in 2 different boxes, so you can pick which one you like if you want to just try and get a few rares. But it's also, if you just spend 500, you can get one from a structure deck. If you're a budget player, you can probably just pick up 3 of this as well, and then you have your 3. Or you can just spend the gems, get 1, and then go into, you know, something like Blazing Rose, pick up your other 2. I would recommend going into Blazing Rose anyway, just a side note, because Black Rose Dragon, Vermilion Dragon make great cards. This has other budget decks like Subterrors, which can be very good, Metaphys, as well as, I think the Crawlers are in here, or am I mistaken? Yeah, the Crawlers are in here. Maybe not as budget, but there's a few different sort of decks that you can experiment with, try out. And it also has decent staples in some Synchro monsters and some World Legacy Clash back row. So I would recommend it. And I feel like it toes the line between something that's very good, very budget friendly, but very achievable to actually pick up. So I'm including that. Now the extra deck, don't pay it too much mind, because 90% of the time you're not going to want to go into these. In fact, 98% of the time you're not going to want to make any of it, because you want to keep your Dark Machine on the field. So in the event that you draw your Barrel Dragon, you get to trigger it, crash, or trigger Blast Spider, run it in, destroy your Dark Machines by any means necessary to get this out, because this is the focus. The extra deck monsters not really the focus. But I think there are some cheap ones like Code Talker you can get from a level up reward. Just run whatever things like that you have on hand. But yeah, that's pretty much it. I have a couple of replays I wanted to show. And the reason why, I just go over this real quick. The reason why I didn't want to use the just structure deck is because I don't want to be disingenuous. I know that it can't compete at the rank I'm currently at in Plat 6. But I still think it can do well in Gold. But when you get to Plat, I do think that it falls off pretty quickly. So that's why I decided to change it up and make it a bit more competitive. And I have a couple of replays ready to go to show that. So Heroes on a win streak, winning you gain a rank. And it's Blue Eyes. Now, what we want to do, obviously in all times, is we want to open up some Dark Machine and Desperado. Now he's set to fort. We have Double Cannon, Blast Spider, Desperado when I draw for turn. A second Desperado. So we're going to activate Cannon, get an Edge. Now I'm expecting this to be a White Stone. So what we can do with that Edge is ignore it. We don't want to attack into that and let him summon a Blue Eyes. We want to try and get around it. But one thing you'll notice with this deck is it does struggle to deal with back row. And a lot of the back row removal is quite expensive, you know, and a bit difficult to access. So it can be a struggle to try and play through it. Obviously now he has the Karma Cut. Pitches an alternative, gets rid of it. Banishing is also a weakness of the deck. If they don't out your Dark Machine by destroying it somehow, by battle or card effect, you aren't going to be able to trigger your card, your Desperado. We go another cannon for another Edge. Again, I have the Blast Spider, but I don't want to be destroying this. So I just want to generate more stats. I don't want to be adding this. I kind of want to keep poking over it and just ignoring it for as long as I can. We go again. I decided, yeah, Blast Spider not really good in this situation, so I'm going to send that off of my cannon, try and thin my deck. What I really want to find is some of my back row. my, econs, World Legacy clashes, some of my traps perhaps. And this is the problem. When they sort of set the fort, set 3 cards, it's very difficult to play through. Especially when you are still relatively normal summon reliant. And we see a drowning Mirror Force. Pretty devastating as well. Again, it's getting around them being destroyed in any way. But we do draw the Windstorm, thankfully. We get the trigger our Switcheroo. Unfortunately, we draw a Blast Spider. I decided to just set it. And he draws the Twin Burst. Polymerization. Summons the Twin Burst. Now we get to summon the guy. We just need 1 heads at least. And we get it. Twin Burst down. Now I'm in this situation. I know from poking last time, when I poked into the drowning, he didn't activate any of his other 2 cards. So what I ended up doing on this turn is kind of pulling the trigger here. I decided to go in because now I am representing a lethal amount of damage. I felt kind of good about it because I did get in 1 Cyberdark Edge poke. And he didn't trigger any of these when I did that. He only triggered this 3rd one when I had the 2 on the field. So I decided to give him the Whitestone trigger and try and go for game, and it does work out. And this is my other replay. It's first a Jaden Ubel. And I believe this is Heroes. We will have the Blast Spider. This is kind of an ideal opening hand. We have the Blast Spider. We can just set it, and we can wall up with our defensive cards, our Econ and our World Legacy Clash. He goes Solid Soldier into Stratos, pops one of my back row, and sets up his Miracle Fusion. For some reason he went World Legacy Clash, I'm not too sure why. But we go Cannon Edge. And this kind of shows off what Blast Spider can do. Blast Spider contribute, pop a monster, and then off of that pop of the Blast Spider we get to summon a Battle Dragon. And deal some burn damage to him. We go to battle, we coin flip and pop a card. And we're in really good standing here. We still have a defensive card, a Battle Dragon, and the Blast Spider. He uses the Miracle Fusion. Gets it out. Favorite duel. He could out it. No. But the only way we really lose here is we flip 3 tails. We flip 3 heads. Which triggers the other effect of the Desperado to actually draw me a card. And even if you flip 3 heads, it's up to the number of heads. So don't panic if you flip more than a larger amount of heads than they have monsters on the field, because you can pick 1 and then stop even if you roll 3. And then we get the draw. We get a nice healthy amount of burn damage from that Blast Spider just sitting on the field generating some pressure. And that was the game. So that's kind of what the deck is all about. I do want to say that it's still vulnerable to back row. Like, we had that one duel versus the Blue Eyes, right? Where we managed to sort of play around it and suss it out. But most of the time, if it is a heavy back row deck, you're going to have a hard time. And I would say particularly a deck that's very prevalent right now is Dark Magician, which plays a lot of back row, you know. Additionally, it banishes, which I mentioned was another weakness, because it gets around you being to be able to be destroyed. So it's kind of like a really, really bad matchup, and it's something that's very popular right now. So I'm not going to pretend, I'm not going to try and lie to you and say that it's like amazingly, like, it's an amazing medical or anything like that. It's something that's very playable. And if you wanted to take it even further, you could. You would just need to include some backer removal. If you, in the long term, and again, in the long term, not right now, but if in the long term, you end up picking anything like MST, Cosmic Cyclone, that would make this deck a lot more viable. But just be aware that if you run into things like Dark Magician, you're going to have a really hard time. And in the plat rank, that's just something I ended up versing a lot. The other sort of difficult part was they had a non-targeting effect, which kind of messed with some things like the World Legacy Clash, because you've got to fire your effects a little bit earlier than you would like. But yeah, just something to think about. But again, I think that this can definitely get you into plat. Let me say that. This is definitely something that can get you into plat, but once it reaches that, it will start to slow down, in my opinion. But I had a lot of fun with this. I hope that you took something from the video and you enjoyed it. And I'll see you in the next video. Thank you so much for watching. Bye-bye.